Welcome to the Catherine Vandome and Me podcast.
Hashtag hosts and the HQFM quiz and bingo software are proud to sponsor the Catherine Vandome and Me podcast. With HQFM quiz and bingo software, you can use this interactive quiz software at any venue. All you need is an internet connection. Go to hashtagquiz.co.uk for your free trial today.
Hello and welcome to Catherine Vandome and Me. Today I'm joined by a very talented guest. She is a West End performer and an opera singer, best known for her leading roles in The Phantom of the Opera and also The Sound of Music in London's West End. It gives me great pleasure this morning to introduce the fantastic, lovely Margaret Preece. Hello there. How are you, Maggie? How are you?
Hello, it's lovely to be with you.
It's great to have you on. And how are you feeling today?
Good. We have sunshine outside today, so that's a reason to smile. For how long? I don't know, but yeah.
And whereabouts are you, Maggie? Whereabouts are you? Because your house looks stunning.
Oh, that's very kind. It's my I call it my diva pad. It's a lovely apartment in Windsor. I was going to say near Windsor, in Maidenhead, and it's a building that was first owned by Laura Ashley. That their general offices were here, and I have an apartment above the main entrance, which I think was their conference room. And it's got a lovely long balcony along the front. So when visitors come to visit me, I can sort of welcome them like a diva from the balcony.
Well, you absolutely encompass all of the wonderments I can see behind. There's lots of photographs, and I'm assuming perhaps some gold medals and things and awards that you've perhaps won. There seems to be a director's chair over there as well. Was that something?
There is. Yes, there is. That's from the Phantom of the Opera film. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. And we're going to come on to that.
Yes, we will.
Wow. So it goes way beyond the West End, what you have achieved. And as I say, you know, you're a friend to all as well. Very, very well esteemed and very well thought of in the industry. So and such a talent to boot. The notes you can sing, I think even Julie Andrews would rival. Absolutely beautiful. So moving on, Maggie, what I want to ask you is, can you just in a few sort of summarized words, just explain to the audience a little bit about who you are, and then we're going to go back to your childhood with your permission and get to know the real diva.
Well, yes, my name's Margaret Preece. Most people call me Maggie, which seems a little less formal, but Margaret Preece is my professional name. But as I say, I almost wince or wonder who it is when somebody says, "Hello, Margaret," because I haven't been called Margaret for such a long time.
Oh, it's a beautiful
Actually,
name.
my dad used to call me Molly, so in my heart, I'm a Molly. But there you go. Very complicated. But yes, yes, that was a nice build up, really. I love it all, basically. I'm just I've always wanted to perform ever since as long as I can remember, and I've been privileged to be able to do a whole range of stuff. I trained initially as an opera singer through what was then the Royal Scottish Academy in Glasgow, and went straight into Scottish opera. Did lots of stuff there, and but I've always loved everything. So I was brought up with musical theatre and plays and all that sort of thing when I was a child. So I've always wanted to do a bit of everything. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing to want to be so diverse, but I couldn't stick it at one particular fach, if you like, one particular style. I wanted to do everything, and I have been lucky enough to have had the opportunity to do that. So yeah, it's been fabulous.
Because there's a lot of talent as well there. So you know, as you say, there's a little bit of luck, but there's also a wealth of talent, because I've heard you sing and it is phenomenal. And So
You're
going
very
back,
kind.
no, very, very honest. So going back, Maggie, back to your childhood,
Yeah.
can I ask where you were born and what primary school you went to? So keeping within the realms of under 10 to start with, we want to know what inspired you, what started you off, and what your parental guidance was. Did your parents enjoy the field of entertainment and guide you as well? So just a little bit about what started you off and where you're from.
Oh, well, I'm from Solihull in the Midlands. I went to a school which was a private school actually called Ruckley School, and because it was considered to be very good. I think it was there were four of us. I had three siblings. I think it was a big struggle for my parents to afford the probably at that time fairly modest fees for us all to go there. But it was supposed to be such a good school to start you off with
Yeah.
that we did all go there. But as far as the music was concerned and the whole love of the theatre, it definitely came from my parents. My mother would have loved to have been a professional actor. She came from Northampton, and I think and she was very heavily involved with the a very good amateur scene there in Northampton. I mean, Richard Burton's first wife was a friend of hers that was in the same group, and quite a lot of quite well known who became to be very well known actors went through the company that she worked, did parts with. But I think circumstances were different then. Quite honestly, from what she told me, I don't think her father thought being an actor was a suitable profession for her. And then fairly young, she met my father and they got married. And so the idea of being a professional performer sort of went out the window rather. However, both of them were very, very interested in music and theatre. And from a very young age, when we were very little, they both joined operatic societies and drama societies and all that sort of thing. So music, particularly musical theatre, was very much part of our house for as long as I can remember. And the other thing, thinking about my mother as wanting to be being an actress, she was fantastic with words. She was a wonderful reader, and she encouraged us almost before we could walk to enjoy books, which was fantastic. And I can remember. Oh, I must have. I mean, I was sort of brought up in the days when Enid Blyton was all the rage, because she was.
I loved Enid Blyton. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she was an odd character. Funny enough, came from round here, as it happens, but just down the road, I think. But yeah, she was an odd character, but she actually wrote fantastically well for children. So I devoured all her books, and my mother had grown up with Enid Blyton, with St Clair's books and all those kind of things, the boarding schools and things. But one of my earliest memories, I said there were four of us, was that my mother on a regular basis would read to us. She was a wonderful reader. She could do all the different voices and characters and accents and all that sort of thing. And so, especially times when we were ill, if one or other of us had got chicken pox or something or other, the person who was poorly would be in bed, and we'd be sitting outside the door, trying not to be infected, while my mother would read stories to us. It was we almost looked forward to somebody being ill, because it meant that we were going to have all these stories, all four of us. So I remember my love of words, as I suppose happened almost before the music really, happened very, very early on, because of my mother's incredible ability to read. And in addition to which, my father was a very good storyteller. He would make up the most incredible stories at the drop of a hat, which we'd all be in awe of, and he should have printed some of them, because they were so funny. His stepmother had been very involved with Gilbert and Sullivan when he was a child. From all accounts, his stepmother was not a very nice woman, but she did love the theatre. So that certainly gave him a love of things like Gilbert and Sullivan. So there was an input from both sides. But yeah, my father would make up wonderful stories, and we would all six of us would be in bed on a Saturday morning with my father was regaling stories of Cedric the squirrel and things like this that he would make up, and then my mother's storytelling, and so I know that I could. I think I very quickly took on the pleasure you can get from the modulation of sound
Yes.
in what that that is yourself as an actor yourself, that the atmosphere you can create by different levels of volume and pitch and all that. So I suppose my
Frequency.
ears,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
And so basically I could read, I suppose we all could, well before I went to school. And so I was definitely reading well by the time I was about three and a half, because I wanted to study the words. So I know I went to school quite early.
Did you?
Because I was desperate to join my sister, who my older sister is three and a half years older than me, and I desperately wanted to go to school. So I actually started younger, than most do. And so by the time I went to school, I was top in reading from the time I went to school to the time I left. I won the reading prize and things like that. And I was only talking about this, funnily enough, to some lovely friends I was with yesterday. We were reminiscing about various things, and we'd all found we were having this conversation about how wonderful words are and how we all. I know I'm digressing slightly, but we were saying how the advent of social media and all that sort of thing has sort of stopped most of us who really loved reading from devouring books, which is terrible. And all four of us were saying at this lunch yesterday, we've got to change this, because words are wonderful. And we were sort of thinking of our favorite words and how we use them and this sort of thing. And yeah, sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
No, you were
slightly
basically
there.
saying about how when you went to school, your love of words,
Yes.
and we're losing that with the technical
Yes,
advancements of today.
yes,
And
yes,
you and I, amongst others, are technophobes.
well,
And
yes,
we
yes.
entertainers are used to doing the live shows.
I
We're
got
used
somebody else
to.
to do it for me.
That's
But yes,
it.
it's the musicality of words. It was certainly what appealed to me. So yes, I know what we were
Yes.
saying. We've all found we had done the same thing when we were small children. When you're sent to bed and say, now go to sleep. And all four of us admitted that we used to get our books and we'd have a little torch and we'd hide under the bedclothes and read. And in fact, one of the girls yesterday made us all laugh because she said, well, I did worse than that because I had a very powerful torch in my bed and I virtually set fire to the sheets. My mother couldn't understand. She said, why my sheets were scorched. Yeah, it's quite funny.
From education. Well, Maggie, moving on to that, education, we absolutely craved it. We wanted to learn, as you say, the power of the books, the handheld book, which today is often on a screen, which isn't a healthy thing, but it's also taking away from the physicality of turning the physical page.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. And the creative juices that we have of wanting to draw, wanting to write, wanting to paint and be like Enid Blyton. To create our own novels, like your father.
It stimulates your imagination, like nothing else. You're absolutely right. I have had several offers of a Kindle. I have no desire to read them because I love holding a book. I mean, I know they're very practical on planes and things like that, but I love the feel of a book. I love being able to turn the page, if necessary, write a little note or something of the sort. So reading was. So I suppose in a way, because I love reading out loud, that I was already learning what it was like to, if you like, be a performer, knowing that I could read something and read it to somebody else and that it would have an impact on them, that they would share in the enjoyment, if you like.
Yes.
But the singing thing started when, I can remember it precisely, really. As I say, my parents were involved in the amateur operatic scene in the area, in Solihull and Birmingham, that sort of thing. And we as a family, all 6 of us, regularly used to go on holiday to the Isle of Wight, which we got very fond of. And my parents had found some nice bungalows which had just been built, where we could go for a couple of weeks. Of course, there were 6 of us, which is expensive, going on holiday, 6 of you. So, and we loved it because the Isle of Wight is like a sort of microcosm of something much bigger, because you've got surfing one side of the island and sailing the other, and all of that sort of stuff. So, but invariably, my father was an engineer, so he generally used to have his holidays that fitted in when all the people that worked for him would be away. He just very, very clever man. He designed car engines and starters and things, and he was always getting patents for all his inventions and stuff.
But he sounds a bit like Dick Van Dyke in Chitty Bang Bang.
Yes. Oh my gosh, he absolutely was. That's a very I hadn't thought of that before, but yes, he absolutely was. He was always tinkering with something, and his wonderful imagination and everything. He was always concocting things. Anyway, invariably it seemed, when we'd go to the Isle of Wight for our 2 weeks in August, that it would rain, for sometimes all the time, but sometimes a lot of the time. This one particular year, I think I was either 5 or 6, and we'd gone with my grandparents, and we were all staying in this big bungalow. And I think we'd exhausted everything it was possible to see without getting soaked on the island. And we come back to the little house, and I think my parents were thinking, what on earth can we suggest that they can do to occupy themselves while we prepare the dinner? So my mum said, I know, she said, while we're getting the dinner ready, why don't you prepare a little concert for us? So, I mean, my brother and sister were very small, so there would have been a limit to what they could do, because they were 18 months younger than me. But certainly me and my sister, who was nearly 4 years older than me, we could drum up something, I suppose.
And how old would you be, Maggie? How old?
Well, as I say, I think I would have been either 5 or 6.
Yes.
And my older sister had always shown a great aptitude for singing, and would sing along with my dad doing Gilbert and Sullivan and all that sort of thing. And I believe they had said sometime before, "Oh, isn't it a shame that Margaret can't sing like Anne can?" Like this.
How wrong they were.
Presumably I was out of tune or whatever. But anyway, I was probably very gung-ho, but probably not very polished. I don't know. But anyway, I remember it very distinctly. We were doing this putting this concert together. And it was one of those places where, you can have a put-up bed, a bed settee for the grandparents or whatever. And so you could divide the room. So there were curtains. And I think that's why my mum thought this would be good, you see, because they could sit one side, and we could pretend we got a stage, if you like, and we could draw the curtains off for each individual number, you see. So we prepared this thing, and I had decided I was going to sing Cliff Richard's "We're All Going on a Summer Holiday," which, as far as I know, I had never sung out loud before, or I don't ever remember singing on my own before this. And I remember it very distinct. When you're little, I can remember how short I was, and knowing, what I could see above me, if you see what I mean, when you're looking across the room. And so we did this concert, and I, at some stage, whether it was at the end, I don't know, I belted out "We're All Going on a Summer Holiday." And my grandparents were sitting there, and my mum and dad were there, and they all went, well, like this. And I remember thinking, wow, I really like this. I had no recollection of ever singing out loud on my own before, but it was like, wow, this is fun.
Yes.
And by an amazing coincidence, really, and then there was no stopping me. You couldn't shut me up once I'd found a voice. And very, very shortly after that, probably only a matter of a couple of weeks or so, I think, my mum got a call from a friend who, in conjunction with a couple of other people, had decided that it might be fun to set up some kind of like sort of concert group, if you like, performing group for children, I suppose mainly to keep us occupied or out of mischief, on a Saturday afternoon. And two of the people that had organised it had been involved in professional stuff. Then when they were much younger, because they were quite elderly, they had performed done ENSA things, during the war. So they got masses and masses of material. They would have been about the same age as at least my grandparents, I would think. And so anyway, one of them rang my mum up and said, would any of the children be interested? And that my mother said, well, my brother and sister would have been too young to do it at that stage, though they did join it later. And she said, well, I know, my oldest daughter would be interested. She loves music and stuff. She said, but I know who would really love to do it, and that's Margaret, because she can't stop singing. And so we went along to this thing, and to be honest, I mean, I suppose I was the star of the show, really.
Yeah.
Because I just loved it. So the very first thing I sang, and my mum used to make most of the costumes. She was brilliant at doing all those kind of things. She could do anything with a needle. So quite a lot of these children, we went to this sort of, what they called it, the manor house, I think. It was like equivalent of a bit of like a sort of a church hall, like might have been originally a Quakers meeting house or something like that. I can't remember, to be honest. In the centre of Solihull on a Saturday afternoon, we would go and with these people that organised it, would put together these little shows. Obviously over several months when we would rehearse them, like a variety show, really.
Yeah.
And do numbers and things together. And then we'd put these charity concerts on at the local theatre and various community places and old people's homes and things like that. And I basically lived for Saturday afternoon. So I do remember the very first thing I sang in front of a full audience with this beautiful, I think I still got the little bando thing my mum made. The first thing I did that my mum made the costume for, and then we had a choreographer, so I had dance and everything, and had twirly beads. I Could Be Happy with You from The Boyfriend. Do you remember? You've probably done that.
Yes.
I bet you've done that. So, and I had to do, and I do remember that the lady that produced it, so I could do a bit of a twiddle. I just suddenly remembered she added an extra bit in. So excuse my voice with my cold and everything, but it goes, I could be happy with you if you could be happy with me. Well, she added a little bit in the middle, which I can still remember now, which went, I could be happy with you, a rooty tooty too, a skiddly dooty, oh.
And you're 6 and you're doing this. That's amazing.
Yes. And so on the ooh, a rooty tooty too, a skiddly dooty, ooh, I had to stick my leg out a la 1920s and twirl my beads.
Yeah.
And so I was 6 years old.
And twirl the beads like this.
And twirl the beads. I've still got those somewhere, I think.
Very like Tallulah, very much like Tallulah.
Yes.
In Bugsy.
Absolutely. And I remember standing on that stage, and it was quite a big auditorium, thinking, oh my God, this is amazing. Well, I wouldn't have thought, my God, but thinking, oh, I love this. And I do remember there was another number in it, because they had these people put together whatever music they got. So some of it was quite old fashioned, really.
Yeah, but
and
very educational to go back.
Well, it was, and I don't know if you know this number, if you've ever done it. And I can't even quite remember how it. No, do you know what? I tell a lie. The very first number I sung was When the Red, Red Robin Comes bobbing along. Yeah, the other one was the second thing I did. Red, Red Robin was the very first solo I did. But yeah, we did a number called, and I can't even remember how it goes, called Little Lady Make Believe. Must be an old, I don't know, could have been even an old music hall song. I can't remember. But I remember we had little poke bonnets, and all the little girls in the group, and there seemed to be loads of us. I'm not sure quite how many. And we looked like little Bo Peeps, really, with little panniers and things.
So Magda, sorry to interrupt, with these people from the local community.
Oh yes.
So this elder couple that were friends of your family.
Yeah.
am I right that they sort of they set up like a theatre school?
Yeah,
basically.
yes, on a Saturday. Yes, it's like the equivalent of state, I suppose, like well, not quite like Stagecoach, but yes, a bit like that, really. So it was quite unique for its time, actually. And so, and actually, it was called, this group was called wherever they got this name from, the Juvenile Numeriques.
Numerique? What does that mean? Number?
I don't know. I think it must do. Do you know? I've never really seen it. But
the children number.
The children. The number.
And
yeah,
you're
number of
unique,
children.
Perhaps. The
Juvenile Numeriques, it was called.
Numerique.
So I have no idea whether they had a similar kind of group, when many years before. I don't know. But that's what it was. That's what it was called. And some of it was on. But I remember doing this number, Little Lady Make Believe. I was on the end of the row. You'll empathise with this. I was on the end of the row. So, and we had to sidestep right across the stage, do a line, while we were singing, do a little thing, and then sidestep all the way back. My mum and dad. I was so enthusiastic. This is 6 years old, right? I'm on the end of the row. My sidestep.
I think I know what's coming.
It's going to happen, don't you? My sidestep was twice as wide as everybody else's, and because I did it with such enthusiasm, my mother said, I looked in horror as the last few little girls sort of shot off into the wings.
Oh.
Yeah, so much. She said the funny thing was you did it with such
gusto,
such joy. Yes, such gusto and such joy. It wasn't. There was nothing guileful about it. It was. I had absolutely no intention in my or thought in my mind of outstripping anybody else. It was just that I was so.
It was like a domino rally.
Yes, it was. It was. And my mum said, I just looked and suddenly saw these children disappear into the wings while you shot across. It embarrasses me even to think about it now.
But I can you ooze gusto and enthusiasm, Maggie. So I can just imagine as a youngster, you're suddenly given this wonderful platform of the stage, which you and I absolutely revelled in our whole lives. Yeah. And suddenly the magic is there. You lose all sense of everything when you're up there, and the excitement takes over.
I'm interested to know how you started. Was it a similar story? I mean, where did it come from?
Well, my book will explain. I have a book coming out called The Truth About Me.
You can tell me a little bit.
And I have to say, one of the early stories, ironically, was that we actually in our own home there was three of us, an elder and a younger brother, and we had curtains in our actual lounge that separated the lounge and dining room. And listening to your story, that is so enlightening, because that was our daily ritual, not a holiday. My brother would open the curtains and play the organ and different instruments, and then I would come out with my little brother, and the costume box was overflowing. My dad and my mum would sit in the lounge, and my mum, a great way to babysit, just like your intuitive mother as well, is go away, make up a show and come back in an hour. And I then took that when I set up my own drama school. I did a bit more hands-on than that. But the point is, what a grand way to get people learning social skills, teamwork skills, working with others, falling over each other in the wings.
Yes,
so I really empathise with an identical story there. That's incredible.
That is incredible. Yeah. It is. And you're right. It did. And maybe it was the same for you, that I found... I mean, that was just the start, because I couldn't stop. And then I got my parents, as they were involved with operatic societies, and it got to a point that, and they used to put on their shows. The company put on their shows. Used to put them on in. They were in a couple of societies before, which were very good, but they eventually ended up with a company that would put on 2 shows a year, a fortnight each time. So that'd be a whole month of performing at the Birmingham Hippodrome.
Wow.
I mean, you can't even imagine. That couldn't possibly happen now. I mean, it was just being born at the right time, because no company would be able to afford anything like that. But at the time, their operatic society, and they were at that time I don't know if they're still in existence, but that at that time there were a lot of ex-professionals within the amateur groups
Yes.
as well,
Yes.
and there probably still are, to be fair, because
There
there's
are
people make
actually.
choices,
I was just going to say today, and in my youth as well, there were professionals and semi-professionals, people who've dabbled and come back. And to be honest with you, the only difference between an amateur and a professional is a professional gets paid. And honestly, today as well, coming up the ranks, there are people who are absolutely incredible. And I'm sure, like you, there was elders who you looked up to and aspired to, who
yeah.
had this talent when you were a little girl yourself, and you think, I just want to be like that.
Oh,
And then,
it was. I know it was such a good company. I mean, I have to say, and I'm sure it still applies now. There was some pretty dreadful amateur operatic societies, pretty awful. But this one was a very good one. And I mean, the fact that the theatre were happy when they used to pack it for this company, which was the only company that was allowed to do it, would for a month of the year effectively fill that theatre, which is I think is still the biggest auditorium in the country. I think it's at 2,600 seats. The
yeah, a
Birmingham
great
Dome. It's
venue,
huge.
great venue.
It's
Yeah.
wonderful. You probably played there yourself, and my mother actually used to do the tickets as well, just play roles and things. So she was so good at all of that sort of thing, fantastic at it, that the theatre just used to pass all the ticket processing for that time to her, and they said, this is just a commendation of my mother. They said she was right to the penny on all the money that we're taking. And that's a huge amount of money. Fortnight, 2,000, and the company would fill it for a fortnight, for a month, a year. I mean, it's amazing. But the reason you could use the Hippodrome was because their standard was very, very high, and so.
So you were blessed, Maggie, with this wonderful. Can I ask what your parents' names are?
Ken and Betty.
Ken and Betty. So you're blessed with these magical parents. You have a father that sits with you on a Sunday with 4 children and his wife and reads these magical stories that he's created. You have this beautiful mother who clearly resonates your character today, who is educating you and teaching you the wonderments of reading, the arts, creativity. She's also brilliant at sewing, and she's front of house. She's an honest, integral lady because she's keeping the books and they're matching. So your parents were great influences in this transition in your life into the world of theatre. But I want to just take you back to the teachers in your school, Maggie. Did they start to see this very excited Tallulah style dancer, singer, all-round entertainer? Because you can do comedy as well, can't you? As well, you had that extra gift as well. Did they pick up on this and encourage you? Not at all.
No. I can't say I got, and I can't say either at my junior school. I mean, they recognised that I was at the junior school, very academic. I don't think they were really aware of what I did at all, really. But they knew I was a very good reader and recognised me for that.
So you're good at English, Maggie, would be one of your core subjects.
Yes, I used to love writing.
I did
writing
essays
stories. Yes, I was had a great imagination. When I went to a grammar school, which was. It changed after a few years. It ceased to be a grammar school. For me, I think I went to the wrong school. For me, it was very sport orientated. I was not sporty. I was blind as a bat. Probably not very coordinated with balls and things like that. And neither was I. It was also a very science-based school. Right. So although I did do things at school, in fact, one of the other sort of epiphany moments for me was when I actually did a children's version. Well, I suppose I was about 13 at the time, of The Marriage of Figaro, where I played Figaro, and that did change my life at school there. But thinking about what you were saying about how what we do influences things, I don't know if it was the same for you, but I found that the fact that I could perform, the fact that I had a talent to communicate verbally and musically,
yes,
I think saved me in a sense, because I wasn't. I was in many ways pretty insecure, I suppose, and I wasn't hugely academic. Yes, I was good at English and that sort of thing. I wasn't really at the right school. Not so much the infant and junior school, but certainly the grammar school. I wasn't particularly happy there. But the fact that I could sing and perform and communicate was what saved me, and which is what I find most important because I teach as well now.
Okay.
And I love the teaching, and we know we'll come on to that. But for me, which is what you're sort of touching on there, is that the music and drama, regardless of whether you take it up as a profession, is absolutely essential as part of children's education and well-being, and defining who they are, or giving them confidence and all of those things. I think it's irrelevant whether they become performers. I'm not. It's lovely if you do coach, as you know, people that want to be performers, but it's absolutely not the be all and end all. I want people to find the best in themselves and to be proud
Yes.
of who they are. And the likes of you and I are fortunate in many ways. That's often a downside to it too, because because we can be over emotional. But the fact that we have such a link with words as well as music, I think, makes us more emotionally connected
Yes.
with
Our
ourselves.
sensitivities, where
Yeah,
they often say, I was often told, oh, you're very sensitive. But actually, those sensitivities come with intuitiveness, they come
yes,
with independent thought processing, they
yeah,
come with choices that transcend beyond what perhaps everybody else is doing or
yeah,
expected to do. And those emotions are absolutely quintessential in the world of theatre, because you can't
absolutely.
emote in a song. A lot of
No.
people can sing, but they can't put the emotion in, and you have that ability
Mm,
in what you do professionally yourself. You can actually put emotion into a song, and that's the difference when people do start to audition, and anybody coming up the ranks that wants to follow in your footsteps. You have to understand that to be able to sing is a blessing, but to be able to emote through song is
you're
pure
so right. And
pure connection.
I'm sure you will have experienced the same, because it's got to be the same with dancing as well. But I think it has to be an intuitive thing.
Yeah.
And I think I might be shot for saying this, but I think there are lots of people that are potentially very good performers, may have very successful performing careers, but they don't necessarily have an intuitiveness. They don't necessarily have an automatic emotional response. I mean,
Yes.
sometimes I work with people, and I think I, I I want to feel that it's coming from your heart. I want you to allow it
Yes.
to come from your heart,
Yes.
rather
They're
than
blocking. They're blocking.
yes,
And a lot of people in life block, but actually, Maggie, that's very profound, because this
mm,
channel is entertainment and health.
mm,
And when we are in fear
mm,
or trepidation or in trauma for whatever reason, from
mm,
childhood or
mm,
experiences in our lives, that can block emotion in some, or in our
definitely.
case, perhaps we can over emote. It just depends what
Yes,
personality type we
yes,
have.
yes,
But
quite.
actually, that ability to over emote means that we can actually get those emotions out. And I think what
Mm,
I'm hearing you say is that that saved you, as it did me. The stage, singing, dancing, acting,
mm,
stand-up comedy for
mm,
me personally as well.
mm,
You have those skills too, to be able to
mm,
make people laugh, that direct
mm,
connection.
mm.
But that saved us. And theatre in itself can save you. It saves your soul, it saves your
It
spirit, and it
does.
develops so many skills that go
Yes.
way beyond what the
Yeah.
education system today is
It,
trying to dampen down. Yeah.
tell me about it. I mean, we all, I think all of us that care about it want to get on our soapbox about this. The fact that that it is, that it, that the whole performing industry, if you like, and the arts generally are so, take such a low position is shocking, because
Yes.
I know maybe it's idealistic, but I think that there'll be less conflict, less misconceptions, less war, less aggression, lots of things.
Let's divide.
Let's divide. If
because
people, yeah.
we need entertainment. It's a social skill. It brings everybody together. I also ran a theatre school as well, and it was all about community, just like the one you had as a little child and the one I had as a little child growing up. It's about bringing everybody together, and we've just come through the last 4.5 years of absolute divide against your fellow man. And what we now need to do, I believe, through this podcast, through social mediums like this, through your talents, where you're teaching and sharing your special gift with others, but also still sharing that with the world in your own talents as well. That is what we need to continue with. We need more Gracie Fields, not less.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about Gracie Fields. I mean, that's a case in point. And people like Vera Lynn and people like that, people who actually inspired nations when they were on their knees, in the world wars, that actually it was music and words which sort of gave everybody courage and spirit again, and
escapism.
And escapism. Absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine my life without it. And I've obviously not everybody is made like that, and they don't. I mean, I'm always amazed that some people say, "Oh, I never listen to music," or "I never listen." But I'm the same with art. I mean, I couldn't live. You can see I've got a colourful. My house is a bit like a stage set.
That's what I was meaning. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
But it's it's again having things that create an emotional stimulation,
a positive emotion, and that is what transcends the theatre, and like you say, how we create our own environments, our own little nest. And you and I, we eat, sleep and dream theatre. But even if you are like you say, an academic, a mathematician, or IT specialist, what you find is when you break these people down to the core, very often they wish they were, for a lot of scientists, for example, that wish they were a theatre director.
Oh yes, absolutely.
For example.
Absolutely.
And at the core of us is art. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and again with art and stuff, both my parents were very, very, very good with their hands and could create things, and both like painting and making things and all that sort of thing. And I think if you're brought up in an environment, which this is the whole worry about the whole social media thing, where your brain is not being stimulated by creativity, then what's going to happen. I don't know if you heard, there was something, I only sort of heard part of it, but I think it was boys they were concentrating. I don't know if you heard that they did a series of programs about I think it was just boys at schoolage, what the effect of things like social media and all that was sort of having on them. And it was only heard part of it, and I must catch them. It must have been on a series of programs on the radio, that this particular group of students they spoke to, and these were boys, they were probably anywhere between 12 and 17 or something like that. So they were very, very articulate and very au fait with what's going on, sort of thing. But what really surprised me, and I don't know if it'd be the same for girls, but various of those boys said, and bearing in mind they've grown up with social media, had said, one of them said, I wish social media had never been invented. Ooh. Because they all acknowledged that their own innate creativity, if you like, and imaginations had basically been compromised by being distracted by social media and tapping messages and things like that. And one of them actually said, it was at 16, I think it was about 16, said, I wish it had never been invented, because I know my life would be different if it hadn't. I'm not, we have got used to tapping away at things and blithely looking at stuff, not even at taking on board whether any of it's true or not, and all of that kind of thing, because that's the other thing. And I thought, how interesting. And yes, of course, we do need this. We need a certain amount of it, and all of that. But it'd be very interesting to see in the next generation to come, and maybe even this one listening to this young man speak, whether the next generations will, if they get the chance, to have a different view on things, say no. They will, I don't know, suddenly look at a piece of art or a piece of music or something and say, how did we lose sight of this? You know,
I think
of
those
our
words,
imaginations, you know?
I think those words, Maggie, that you've just spoken are integral to this channel. What I want is for people like yourself, artistic, creative minded, who come from that wonderful backdrop, to inspire the youth of today coming up the
Mm,
ranks,
mm,
to drop the phones with, I mean, as I say from the beginning, they're not health providing
mm,
pieces of equipment anyway.
mm,
So we are making ourselves and our connections with others more and more unhealthy. We are texting our parents' happy birthday, for example, something I don't like to do. I don't like using technical devices, and this
yes,
is all
yes, yeah,
quite new to me as well, because I've done everything I can to sort of step away
yes,
from that, and I
yeah,
think you're quite similar. So
yeah,
even today, I think if we can, yes, watching films is great. Yes, the television is a source of information and escapism with movies, and obviously we're going to come on to the movie that you guest appeared in and things like that. But I also think you're absolutely right. If we can put all the technical devices
mm,
aside and get
mm,
the pen and the paper out, and I said this in an earlier podcast as well, we actually engage the logical free thinking side of the brain when we write with a
absolutely,
pen and paper and create and on that, whereas
absolutely,
we are just tapping away and following somebody else's words. We're
mm,
not even questioning whether they're true, as you said. Even in a
mm,
classroom, we're
mm,
just becoming robotic, and I don't think that is self-serving. I think we need to get back to building a campfire, to getting out into nature, to singing, and we're moving swiftly on to the Sound of Music with yourself, like the Von Trapp family, where you had four of you and your mum and dad. That was
yeah,
like the start of
yeah.
that.
No, well, they used to call us they Captain von Preece's.
There you go.
Yeah, but interesting you mentioning the. I was only talking about this the other day. I've got this wonderful little family living down the corridor who I adore, and their little girl is, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention her name, but she's Maya, who's just wonderful. She's seven and a half years old, and but absolutely full of imagination, and she's never fails to amaze me. She's terrific at making up stories and things, and I very much want to encourage her in all of this. But I was the other day or the other week. I've got a beautiful fountain pen that my father bought me. He bought me a fountain pen and you know the biro and the gold they are, of course.
Yes, yes.
Propelling pencil, but the fountain pen writes beautifully. And I always, you're probably the same, we were taught how to use fountain pens quite early on at school and practice our handwriting, and were encouraged to create our own handwriting, and I hope that they do that now. But so much is typed up now. I was sort of doing something, writing something a few weeks ago with this little girl, and she said, "Oh, can I try your fountain
Oh,
pen?" And I said, when mummy says, and when you're allowed to have one, I'm going to get you a fountain pen, because they don't really use things like that
no.
anymore. And I think so much is typed and all this, and that's another again part of the creative thing is holding a pen. I still use a fountain pen all the time, and it gives you time to think what you want to say and how you want to how you choose the words. I'm one of these people that people make me laugh. I've got a friend who laughs at me because when I send messages, I put punctuation in it. One of the things that's doing that at the moment, instead of somebody saying, this sounds very pedantic, but I just like it to be correct, I would say, I texted him. What people are now saying, I text him, and I'm going, or text her. I say, but it's not right. It's not grammar. It's shortening something, but just to make it quickly. So people say they use the word wrong, and I can't write it and I can't say it. It's got to be right. So I've got a friend who said, I love your messages because they're like reading a letter.
Yeah,
And you
they're
put
grammatically correct.
punctuation in,
Yeah.
and you spell the words right, and you do that. And I think it's really important for that youngsters should get that back again. And one of the things that this lovely little girl likes doing is writing stories.
Oh, good.
And one of the games that we play sometimes is that she and her mum and I will start off a story, we'll handwrite it, and then we'll write a paragraph, and then we'll swap. It's a bit like Consequences.
Yes.
And then we'll continue each other's story. So which means we've got to think what has been written and how we follow on from it. And so we'll do a few paragraphs like that, and then we'll read out the total story. And it's such a lovely game to play. I don't know how many other people do that, but just handwriting it, and little girl will put colours in it and things like that, maybe, or something like that as well. But it's such a lovely thing to do. So it's just stimulating your imagination.
Of course it is. And Maggie, I think what you've just said is so empowering, so important, and we just don't have that. I mean, the very fact that you're linked to your neighbours as well. There's sometimes in some areas when we're not getting those physical links, but you're absolutely right. I mean, what a great teacher and orator and linguistic teacher. I hope one day she'll be appearing in the future,
she will.
talking about how you inspired her. Does that make sense?
Well.
Because these things, as you said, 6, 7, 8, 9, that sort of age bracket, you remember for a lifetime. What happened after you graduated from high school? What was your next step there?
Well, it wasn't going into music initially. It was. I mean, by the time I left school, and I wasn't happy leaving at my school. The last, going back to what we said, not in a negative way, but it still helped me through. I had a teacher at school in my sixth form who basically bullied me. And the way she would bully me was to starve me of the thing that I loved most, which was the performing. And she couldn't control the music side of things because the music department were very supportive of me, and I did A-level music in that. But she could because I was a good actor. I got into was chosen for several school plays and things, and I don't know whatever happened to her. I never saw her after I left school, but she on 2 or 3 productions she took me out of the leading role on the pretext that you need to you've got your exams coming up and everything. But it was all about humiliation and all that sort of thing. So my final 2 years at school were very marred by this person. What her motive was, heaven knows. But I was good, and I should have been doing these things.
Possibly jealousy, Maggie. I do want to interject there and say possibly jealousy. Hurt people. It goes down the line unconsciously, and maybe she saw in you herself in a youth and thought, well, I had this stamped out of me, which is why I'm now doing what I'm doing.
I'll never. I know you should forgive.
I'll never
know. I could never forgive her for what she did, and she may have done the same thing to other people. But so I didn't really know. So she took a lot of my confidence away, and in those days nobody could. I mean, my parents were terribly upset about it, and and all that. In those days and nowadays in schools, you can go in and complain and make a difference. But I mean, she more or less said, if you do anything about this, it'll compromise your exam. So, that was the way it was. But, luckily, I still had the escape of doing it outside school. So that's what saved me. I was still performing outside school. Anyway, when I left school, the first thing I did was went and did, got a secretarial qualification. I went at a Chamber of Commerce thing. It's just a year's course. So I learned, did in those days, shorthand and typing and that. And so for a little while, I was performing in, playing leading roles in societies. all the choral societies and things like that. I was singing roles in, and I was singing for golf clubs and Masonic things. So I was working, if you like, as a semi-pro. And
Okay,
so I
from
was,
age
you know, so I was,
16? From age
oh,
16?
easily, yes, probably earlier. Yeah. My father used to take me along, you know, to Masonic clubs and things regularly. He'd wait for me, and I'd do a couple of sets. So I was probably 15 when I started doing that.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
they give you 50 quid or something, you know, and put it in
So
your,
you were a paid performer at
yeah,
the age of 15.
something like that. Yeah,
That's
my father
really
used
incredible.
to take. I was certainly 16. Yeah, he'd be taking me over to things. It wouldn't happen all the time, but you know, because my I had a wonderful singing teacher in the area in Birmingham, and she had connections and things. I can't remember how it would all set up, but people got to hear about me, and I was winning competitions and that sort of thing. So I was doing that, so I was getting some satisfaction out of it. But I started off by really being a secretary in the birth of IT, really, as it
Wow.
was.
Maggie, I'm going to take this moment just to quickly introduce little
Oh,
Tinker and
hello,
say hello,
Tinker.
because this podcast is about us watching you. And I thought I'll just say a quick hello. He's fast asleep, but
Oh,
there you
he's
go.
not, you know. He's awake. He's awake.
So you basically, at the age of 16, you're performing in local arenas. So tell us
Yeah.
about that, Maggie.
Well, yes. So I'd, you know, there would be various choral societies in these. It would be doing oratorios and that sort of thing. So I'd get asked to do the solo parts in things like the Messiah and um, foray requiems and things like that. So I'd be the soloist in that, and I'd go along to golf clubs and Masonics and things like that. There was a little group that my parents were a part of as well. So we do, some of it was for charity. Some of them were charity concerts, but the Masonic ones I'd get paid for. And my mum, I say, was very handy with a needle. So
Wow.
she made me you know, I had a whole selection of lovely long dresses for these concerts and things that she would make. And as I say, my father would drive me over to these places, and I'd do my bit and come back. Very interesting, because of course people smoked in those days, you
Oh,
know, while you were
yes.
performing, you know.
Well, right up until the 90s, to be
Yeah,
honest. Yeah.
yeah. So I was getting, obviously, and I was playing leads in operatic societies and things like that. Um, and then so I did that, and I was on a good salary there for their 2 or 3 years, whatever it was. And then I realized just how unhappy I was, and that this is not the way I wanted it to go. And it just so happened that I used to get the opera magazine, because I'd always sung a whole variety of stuff. I mean, I was never stopped singing. I was always doing something, whether I was being paid for it or not. I was singing concerts, and always loved the whole variety of stuff, from musical theatre, folk songs, and of course I was doing all the festivals and things, to grand opera and all this sort of thing, and doing operetta roles and things. Anyway, I used to have opera magazine once a month, and I saw there was an advert at the back of it, and it said, "We're starting a new postgrad course at the Royal Scottish Academy which is especially geared for bringing on potential opera soloists."
Oh,
And they said, "We're looking for 12 singers, 3 of each part. In other words, 3 sopranos, 3 mezzos, 3 tenors, and 3 baritone basses, if you like." And I can't remember if they were taking on repetiteurs as well, but they were starting this little course with 2 very esteemed people, conductors, attached to the Royal Scottish Academy, and invitations open. It's actually one of those things that I probably wouldn't even be allowed to apply for now. I'm not sure, because I didn't have a degree in music. I got A-level music, and I'd got grade 8 distinction in my exam, you know, my Royal Academy exams, but I didn't have a degree. So, and on a whim, I looked at this thing and I said to my mum, "I'm going to apply for this." And I sent in an application. And of course, I had been singing all over the place, and my singing teacher was thrilled. She'd been dying for me to do it. She taught many very, very famous international opera singers. And so I put my application in, and I thought, I feel as if my life has come to a full stop. I'm not at all happy. I don't know where my future lies, but it's not here. That's all I knew.
And how old would you be now, Maggie?
Oh, I was in my, yes, I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About 21.
And
yeah.
something like that. Yeah. And I went on a booked my train ticket, went on up to Scotland, and I went with a boyfriend at the time. Went in and did the audition, sang a couple of, I hadn't done different languages particularly. I'd have sung in Latin a few times, I suppose, but I hadn't studied different languages particularly. But I sang two or three arias for these two conductors.
Wow.
And bearing in mind, this would have been auditioned all over the world, really.
Yeah, there'd have been a huge intake.
Yes, there would have been. I mean, it's more international people now than what, but nonetheless, there would have been people from all over the place that could have auditioned. I don't know exactly how many auditioned. And they offered me one of the three places there and then. But you see, the thing was, I had so much experience because I'd been performing, since I was a child.
Yes.
And I had been performing with companies who were extremely good. So, and I'd also done plays and things like that as well. And, which were again of a good standard. So, and obviously lots of stuff at schools and things like that. I played leads and things like that. So in many ways, I had more experience as a performer at quite a high level than the people that would have just come out of college. So
that's so true, and I want to just pause it there while I say that should inspire anybody who's potentially living their life thinking, well, this is how it's going to be. I'm going to have the next 20 years doing a day job and then performing in the evening where my heart actually wants to do the evening job by day. And you made that wonderful choice yourself to go and train further so that you could pursue your career in the arts. And you didn't know how it was going to go.
Yep.
And as you said, underneath, you'd had a few knocks and your confidence knocked, but you got yourself back up. You went to it. You had competition globally, and you got one of the three opportunity places. So very well done and congratulations.
Well, and the thing was, and it is, as you say, it's about following, what you suddenly realize is this what you're meant to be doing. I mean, at the time I was still living at home, obviously paying rent to my mum and dad.
Yes.
And I was directionless. I was very well respected at work. I was on a good salary, but I was miserable inside. Yeah. And so the thought, as you say, of jumping into the unknown, having no money, having no income, stopping all this, did not for one single second terrify me. I applied. Luckily, I was at a time, because I'd never had a grant and I'd been working and I'd been paying tax and all that sort of thing. I applied, for for a grant from the local council, and I got it. I got, and I'd got savings, and I didn't want to take any money from my parents or anything. I said, I'm going to do this. It was a 12-month course. So I thought, I'm going to see what happens at the end of this. They were trying it out then. It's very successful. I think became a 2-year course after that. But I didn't have much time to make my mind up. I went into work, and they were so thrilled for me. Because they knew I could sing, because I used to sing with the choir at work and do the solos and things like that. So I was known as a singer at work anyway. And my boss, who, loved me working for him and everything, he was a fan of my singing anyway, he was just thrilled. They were all thrilled. They gave me a fantastic send-off. And it was within weeks, really. In fact, I seem to remember I barely had time to give my notice. And they said, don't worry about it, you're going. you know,
Oh,
and my mum and dad, I think, again, you know, initially I think my mum had probably been thinking, you know, is this going to be you know, what is it, will you be disappointed, is it going to be too tough, you know, it's a tough, you know, it's not an easy profession, da 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 da. But the moment I said I'm going to go for this, they were 100% behind me. So within weeks there I was shipping myself off to Glasgow, and then I didn't look back. I mean, I was so happy. I didn't give a damn that I wasn't earning any money. That was doing it every day was was
exciting.
it's like the shell had been broken on the egg, and I was given, you know, this little chicken was emerging or something. I don't know. It was
And it
crazy.
lit you up, which is what our world does for us. Absolutely.
Mm.
And I think, what was the course actually called, Maggie? What was the actual course name?
I think it was, I think it was, I can't remember. It was an opera course.
So it was, right,
like
that's what I wanted to get to. So
Postgrad
in opera, but even without the degree, they let you have that opportunity, which is just incredible. It just shows what a gift you obviously have.
I think the sad thing, yes, it does actually. I get, when I think about it, yes, that I obviously, you know, really impressed them, and then, you know, and played and got to play the most incredible variety of roles and stuff in that year. It was just buzzing. But the interesting thing is, going back to education now and how the arts are, I don't know that I would have had the opportunity to do that now. I think you see, I don't have a music degree at all. And actually, they probably give a diploma for that course now. There was no diploma for that. I did the year's course there and was taken in by Scottish Opera straight away. I had a wonderful teacher there, Pat Hay, who loved the fact that I was an actor as well as a singer, and she was, you know, said we're you know, she's totally behind me. And I joined Scottish Opera and was basically playing all the small roles. They were at the height. I mean, they barely, all these companies, as you know, they barely exist anymore. You can see the Trouble, English National Opera, Welsh National Opera, Scottish Opera. They are not, when I was there, they were all thriving, touring, all crossing borders. They're all crossing each other's territory and everything. There were choices in every city of who you could watch. Now they're barely, you know, we know the state they're in. As I say, I went to Scottish Opera. I was playing all the small roles, and I was covering, you know, all the large roles suitable for my age and everything, which is absolutely wonderful. And I just stand in the wings, and it was always in fantastic shows, operas and things that we did, then operettas and things. And you know, but mega international singers. And I just stand in the wings watching and learning. And then after 3 years there, I applied for what they call another postgrad thing, if you like, called the Opera Studio in London, where again they took on 12 singers who they felt were destined to go further, if you like. And again, hugely competitive thing to go into. And I applied for that, and I got one of the soprano roles at that. And in addition, I got a scholarship through the Opera Studio and through Scottish Opera. So I was lucky to have everything paid for, effectively all my tuition fees, my accommodation expenses and everything were all paid for by these two bursaries, you know, and obviously I'd saved money and everything. So I didn't have to be in any way dependent on my parents and everything. I wanted very much, I mean, and they were incredibly supportive, came to see me do absolutely everything, bless them. There was no certificate for that. So the irony of the situation, which really gets me, is that I don't have a degree in music. And the fact that I don't have a degree in music means that despite all my wealth of experience and knowledge and all the rest of it over such a broad spectrum, I would not get a job in a school teaching music.
Crazy, isn't it? Crazy.
You know,
what a crazy world.
And that didn't apply then.
Yeah.
Now, in those days, I think if I was a young person now deciding to do it, they say, "Oh no, you've got to go and you've got to have a degree,
Yeah.
you've got to have this bit of paper." But it didn't stop me then, because what they cared about was your talent.
Yeah.
And your desire and ability to learn. And I think, this is another soapbox, if you like. That having paper qualifications now seems to be the be all and end all,
Yeah.
and when lots of things I think can be done through apprenticeships and all sorts of things like that, but having those qualifications is all that matters, regardless of whether you're able to do that, or the experience that you might have, and all that sort of thing. It bugs me that
I agree.
if I apply for a teaching job at various colleges, and you go through these prescriptive application forms, those application forms, which are rigidly set up, do not allow you to say, "No, I don't have that degree, but look what I've done. Look at the conductors and the directors that I've worked for. Look at the wealth of what I've done, the experience I've got. I'm a very good teacher." But I won't even get an interview.
It's crazy.
Isn't it insane?
It's absolutely crazy, and it really is such a shame, because we're going to move on now to the next bit. So what happened next? Because we all want to hear, what experience you got next, because it's fantastic.
It is. I had a wonderful time at Scottish Opera. And an enormous number of operas that I did there, and some wonderful parts, and learned all sorts of magnificent roles. Got the opera studio place, where again my knowledge was expanded more. They threw everything at me because I loved it all. We'd be doing Rossini, Wagner, Strauss, Handel. I could always, in one day, you'd be going covering vast spectrums, and we get obviously further. We got acting training. We were working with the best directors in the biggest opera houses and the conductors, and an amazing time. So at the end of that year, and I remember I did 2 showings. I was lucky enough to get 2 showings rather than 1. I did the Queen Elizabeth Hall. I did. You did sections, whether your agents come to see you do things. So I did Susanna in Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro, and I did Lucia in Lucia di Lammermoor, with a wonderful baritone who's gone from strength to strength, Jerry Finlay, and I picked up an agent, and then I started to work for. Because I hadn't really needed my own agent up to that time, because now I was really being launched in my solo career around. And so I then did a lot of work with English National Opera, and that, which was great fun. And then of course that would spill into other opera companies like Opera North, where I'm going next weekend actually, and English Touring Opera, Covent Garden, did some covering there, and all sorts of. So I was working with all the opera companies. City of Birmingham Touring Opera with dear Graham Vick, who's sadly died now. One of the COVID victims, unfortunately. And so I was going from one thing to the next, and doing concert work and all that, mainly of a classical nature, but lots of operetta as well, which is a particular passion of mine, which is the sort of bridge, if you like, between musical theatre and opera.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And I love it, and because you get the dialogue in that as well, which is fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you've got comedy, you see. I want to just point out, I've seen you doing some comedy in person as well as on the stage, and that, as you say, that's an extra skill that not everybody has, and to be able to sing as you can and have that comedy ability as well. I mean, you've got the whole makeup there for anybody that's looking for hiring somebody with your skill set. So absolutely brilliant. So carry on. Tell us what happened next.
It was great. So it's kind of going from one to another, and doing lots of musical theatre in between whiles as well. And some of the opera companies, of course, would do musical theatre. Like I did with Opera North. We ended up doing. And I'm singing a song from this next week, actually. The British premiere of Kurt Weill's Love Life, which had been virtually lost after it was first written in 1948, when Kurt Weill died, was a whole series of circumstances, with a musician strike and all that sort of thing, or whatever it was,
Right.
that stopped there being a proper. It may not have been the musicians; it may have been the sound people. I can't remember now. But there wasn't an official recording made of the musical, which was written with Alan J. Lerner when he was sort of on a break with Frederick Lowe. So history would have changed
Yes.
if Kurt Weill had lived. And I did the British premiere of the lead in that, and I did also the British premiere of Gershwin's Of Thee I Sing. So places like Opera North are great at doing mixing in the musicals and things like that. And then so I was doing a bit of a mixture of everything, lots of cabaret stuff as well, which I did with various people where you can mix anything in. And then a very good friend of mine, who I hopefully will see next week as well, another opera singer, actually said to me, I can't remember where we were having this conversation, a lovely soprano called Sandra Dugdale, she had done Carlotta in Phantom she'd done it for a little while in town, and she'd also done the tour, and she'd just done it, I think, in Manchester. And she said, you should go and audition for Carlotta. And I said, well, should I? She said, oh God, yeah, absolutely. She's a real lovely northern lass, she is, she's marvellous. So I thought, yeah, okay, I will. So basically, I took her advice and auditioned for Carlotta, and I got it.
And was this with your manager was your manager working with you, or was it an open casting? Or
no, it all goes through an agent. I got a different agent by that stage.
Okay.
As one does, I've had a number of agents.
Well, as you develop and change,
you do. You develop and change. You change agents. That's right.
Yeah.
So, and I've worked abroad in lots of places as well. Often I have found, if I've auditioned for operas, I've not necessarily gone and sang something sang the role itself. I might have sang something akin to it, and then they will choose you from that. They don't necessarily send you the music. But when you do musical theatre or indeed plays, they send you sections, as you know, to do.
Yeah.
To follow those. And so I applied for but on the first round, I think you, as far as I remember, yes, you do. You sing your own thing, if you like. So you went on, and I think the first thing I did, it was on for both my auditions for Carlotta were actually, as it happens, and very fortunately, I don't think that they necessarily do it like that now, were actually on the stage of what was then Her Majesty's.
Yes, gorgeous stage. Yes,
which is fabulous stage, as you say. It was now His Majesty's, which I keep forgetting. It's terrible, but yes, it's His Majesty's now, but Her Majesty's as it was then. And now I think I think you can go through a lot of processes before it goes on stage, but I did both my auditions on the stage, as it happens. And I think even the first, I'm trying to remember, I think even the first time round, I think all the panel were there. I'm trying to remember if Andrew Lloyd Webber was there the first. Certainly Cameron McIntosh was there.
Okay.
And the resident director at the time, things like that. But I think the first thing I sang actually which was very akin to Carlotta. I don't think they may not have sent me any music the first time. They probably didn't actually then. I sang Glitter and Be Gay, the Bernstein thing. From Candide, which is a real, I don't know if you know it, but it's an absolutely firework showstopper for the high soprano. And, Bernstein is just, Bernstein, I was just to say, is amazing. And it's, it's got top E's at the end of it and everything. And you've got to be an actor, a very, very good actor to do it. So that's what got me through the first round. And then they must have sent me the music for the cadenza at the beginning and to sing the prima donna number. And I remember standing on that stage thinking, oh my gosh, I really want this, and loving it. And the response seemed to be very warm from the panel. And Andrew was there, and then Cameron, and the whole caboodle sort of thing. It's such a lovely theatre to sing in anyway. And I think I knew I certainly got the call within 24 hours.
Wow. That's
And
incredible.
which was, yeah, which was fantastic. And I was just blown away, by it. And
Sounds like they were as well.
wow,
They were blown away by you,
but
you know.
what I was fortunate for, it was so exciting. It was so
I bet it
exciting.
was. I can feel the electricity. I can feel it, what
It
you're
was,
talking
well,
about.
was lucky, what I was lucky was that obviously the costumes are out of this world. And because, and what they try to do, and obviously the budget for the costumes must be enormous.
Yeah.
What sometimes what they'll try to do, if obviously when they do a cast change, they may have somebody who's completely different shape and size or whatever, and I suppose that was partly the case in my case. That was probably the situation in my case. Was that they couldn't reuse any of it. In other words, so sometimes what they might do, and I suppose they still do, is that if whoever comes in is and it's still in good condition, if the basque, the bodice part of a dress or something is still okay, or the skirt is, or whatever, they will salvage what they can and remake. They're always going to look fabulous.
Yes.
But as it happened, for me, every single stitch that I had for all those amazing Carlotta costumes, and the shoes and the hats and the wigs and everything, were all brand new. So, I remember I had lots of costume fittings. And, it was just so amazing because the budget was colossal for Carlotta even then. And this is in, when was this? 1999, 2000, that sort of thing, up to, I can't remember, whether up to 2001 or something
Well, I
like that.
probably saw you because I think it was around about then
Yeah.
that I saw it. So
And it
I
was
would
it was
assume.
a big budget for the
Yes.
costume, and the costumes were amazing, and they were designed by a fantastic designer that I had worked with on different operas in the past, Maria Bjornsson, and she was amazing. And I must have gone for several costume fittings over a period of time for all the costumes. It was such a joy because you have your shoes literally made to measure and all that sort of. I've got very narrow feet, so they had to do that with them. I couldn't have inherited anybody else's. So they are literally. I have them here. Nobody else would have been able to wear them. 2 pairs of beautiful handmade shoes, and the wigs were made for me and everything, and they're just sumptuous. I've got some remnants of some of the fabrics that they gave me afterwards for fun. I've still not met. I've just got them in a bag. On one of these days, I wish I had my mother's sewing skills. I should be able to put some of these things together to make a cushion or something or other that of some of the fabrics, not just mine, but they gave me little scraps. They said, "Would you like these as a memento?" I said, "Oh gosh, yes, that would be wonderful."
Oh.
But I can honestly say that whole experience, I loved every single second of it. Every single second of it. Absolutely loved it. It was and is a fantastic show. And I got the chance to work with Hal Prince, and he came over a couple of times, and he was amazing. That was a really interesting thing. He said to me in the opening of, I guess you must have seen Phantom lots of time. Well, you might have seen me.
I may have seen you,
yeah,
because
which
it was literally about that time. Yeah, how incredible.
Well, if you saw it in 2000, yes, it was me, without a doubt, yeah. But yes, I remember he came because he would come over because he wanted everything to be exactly as he had originally set it. So he was very, very firm about what he liked and what he didn't like, which is quite scary, really. And which is always scary because he was quite capable of hiring and firing, as it were.
Okay.
Because what his word really counted. So it was scary. And so anyway, we were working on the scene after Hannibal, when she's humiliated, and the 2 managers ask eventually asked Christine to sing "Think of Me" and all this, which was, and Carlotta starts to sing it, and then obviously is humiliated, and she does this speech when she flounces out, and these things do happen. This, and all that whole speech, and unless you stop these things happening, this thing does not happen, or this thing, and it's a speech that you can easily kind of over elaborate and make it a bit cod, if
Yes.
to use colloquial expression, if you like. And I remember him saying to me, he said, "I want you to imagine that you're Maria Callas and you are being publicly humiliated, and but the one thing on your mind is to hold your dignity at all times, and you are not going to let anybody see you cry or show that you are that you're destroyed by this. I want it absolutely dignified."
Yes.
So I thought, right, okay. How did it? My Maria Callas is absolutely one of my top heroines of all time. Anyway, so it, and I think she's phenomenal. Nobody will play Tosca like she did, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
But so I did that whole speech. These things do happen. For the last 3 years, these things do happen. And did you stop them happening? No. And so forth.
Yes.
So I did this whole speech like this, and unless you stop these things happening, this thing does not happen. And I went off, and he went.
Well, I was just going to do the same.
I can't remember the line in the middle, but I thought, okay, you want me to be Maria Callas? And he said, that's the way to do it, So I was Maria Callas every night after that. And I thought, yeah, he's absolutely right. Because it's much more, it's easy to make a character like Carlotta into almost be a comic character. But actually, because Maria Callas was treated very badly, many occasions. She had to overcome an awful lot of flack, and God knows what it would be like now with social media, with people like that, once they could get their knives in. But she had a hard time, and he said, you got to see her vulnerability, but also her strength.
Yeah.
And it was, and you just think, I'm never going to forget the fact that I worked with him. Obviously there were other people that did that role and everything, that worked with him for the whole duration, which must be amazing. And I remember years later, when I was with the CEO of Rogers and Hammerstein, the president, Ted Chapin, having dinner with him and the musical supervisor of Rogers and Hammerstein, Bruce Pommerhack. We were in the Barbican, and Hal Prince was on the next table. This is years later. And I said, you probably won't remember me. I said, I've got to say hello to. And he said, whether he did or not, I don't know. But he said, oh, of course I remember you. How wonderful to see you again. And everything. And and it was just lovely, to that's one of the privileges that we can get in this career, is that you get to meet heroes or heroines of yours along the way. And I met a number. But yes, the whole Phantom was one of it, and I remember the joy every single show I did doing that prima donna number. It was just magical. And then you go, and then that number would finish, and you had the quickest change, including a wig change, imaginable. And had to go into the Il Muto scene, and where you literally stand, the curtain comes across, and that huge bed comes in, and you stand there like that, and you've got several dressers, taking off one costume, putting on the other, taking off a wig, gluing on another one, changing the jewelry, and you just stand like that. And I think it's done in, or somebody will probably correct me on it, it's something like about 50 seconds or something.
Yes.
I mean, it's the quickest change amount. I don't think it's more than I don't think it's as much as a minute. And you've just got to stand there and have all these people just doing, and then you sit on the bed and start, poor fool, he makes me laugh, and all that business, and it was all that slickness that goes with it as well.
I was going to say I'll just say we've had other artists on who have talked about being dressers and things as well. There's a pressure for them. In fact,
and they are
the pressure is in many ways on the people behind the scenes, who get blamed for everything if something isn't perfect.
They are amazing. As far as I'm concerned, the guy that sweeps the stage at the end and puts it back and everything is absolutely as important as the person who's conducting the orchestra and everything. Those dressers and everything are, I just bow at their their talent, and they're professional, and some of them spend their whole careers doing that. Sometimes you'll get that yourself, people who will dress in between times, who are very talented performers themselves. I know the importance of it. They're amazing. But there were people there that have spent a lifetime doing that, and they are, they need to be decorated. They're incredible, every single person. And and it's sort of slightly digressing, and this may sound very sort of over the top in a way, I suppose, but of all the people that I've ever worked with, and I think this is about connecting with one's emotions, however famous or not, the friends that I have made in my career as a performer are, not probably 90% of them. You're always going to get the odd one, as it were, but 90% of them are people I would trust with my life.
Yes,
because they're honest, they're decent, they're hardworking. People often would say to me, "Oh, I bet people in the theatre, they're terribly superficial and all that." And I said, "Not in my experience.
Yeah,
they're the reverse. They are. Well, I get quite emotional because some of my friends, I've got one that lives down the road who I love her to bits, fantastic performer. I know I could trust with my life.
Yes.
Their dedication to what, and I think it is part of their passion, that people having a passion for something.
It is,
and understanding that we are all little parts of a whole, that a show does not work unless everybody is valued and everybody does their job to the best of their ability, and they do their job to the best of their ability when they're respected.
Yes. And you had that example in your own youth, which although it was tragic, with the teacher that chastised you for what her belief was that you were doing wrong, whatever that was, but she chastised you, and your punishment was to not do the thing you love the most. So in some respects, Maggie, she probably inspired you to push harder subconsciously. And so what you're saying is, today, this hybrid of entertainment from the front of house, from your mum ripping the tickets and encouraging you, and then sewing, right through to the transition for you working on the front of the stage, but also understanding and respecting, as you just explained, the dresses behind, the wig people. Every night, those wigs they have their own little sort of director, don't they? Manager.
They do.
Those
They're
wigs
all
go in a lift all the way down. And they have to be washed and cleaned and the costumes on a daily basis as well. And those people, as you say,
they're like gold.
The theatre itself isn't just for anybody that's watching that might want to do wig dressing, costume dressing, or anything like that, as well as performing. It's inspiring everybody to be part of this community, and that's really the core of what theatre is. It is a community, as you quite rightly said.
It is, and I think if people would apply the same rules to any business, it doesn't matter what whether it's theatre, anything else, but it's about if all businesses, of whatever nature they may be, were run with mutual respect and integrity all the way down from the top to the bottom, with transparency, That may sound very idealistic, but if they are, then it benefits everybody. Then they work efficiently and well, and a happy team makes for a happy business, wherever it is.
So true, so true. And I'm glad that you brought other businesses in, because it isn't just entertainment. It is exactly that, that if you work as a whole, instead of we're up here and you're down there, as we're having today politically, we need to make sure that we are a team, that we respect each other, that we speak to each other with respect, and we treat each other equally. And as you quite rightly said, because of the intensity that the theatre world, as a performer, I can only speak as a performer, but because of that intensity that we have and the connection with others, it drives very fast friendships. But I remember being in my early years on a cruise ship with a mutual friend of ours, Anthony Bristow, and we had
lovely Anthony, a
gorgeous human being, and we had 13 costume changes I had per show. Per night, so there was 26 altogether, and it's but there's a lot of trust in that. So when you're trusting people,
absolutely, and trust is key. Yes, it is. And what people don't realize, and I think again that applies in business, if you talk about comedy, say you're doing a comic play, you can't be selfish about what you do with your lines, because if you're selfish with your lines, it mucks up the whole. It's the interaction between actors. I give something to you, and as a result, you give something back, which makes the whole thing infinitely better.
And you have to be very generous, because I always say, as a stand-up comedian, I always say it's 90% audience and 10% us. And if we can be unselfish as artists on the stage and bring people in from the wings, from the sides, from behind, from the front, the audience as well, they want to enjoy that excitement that fills and fuels you and I on a daily basis.
Yes, they do. No, they do. Yeah,
they want to go on that journey. And right from the moment where the chandelier comes crashing down, and I hope I haven't spoiled it for anybody who hasn't yet seen it. I'm sure you'll know that by now. So how did that feel, and how long did you do in Phantom, Maggie, before we moved on to the next exciting opportunity?
It's very difficult, because you sort of think, I could have easily, assuming that they'd wanted me to stay. I mean, it's hard work doing a role like Carlotta, 8 shows a week, week after week, and you have no other life. But I was happy to do that. I mean, you can't sing all those high notes and then go partying afterwards. So, but I loved it, and I actually stayed with friends, which was lovely, because I wasn't based down in London then. So I stayed with friends in Bromley. My wonderful singing teacher, John Hovell, had died of a heart attack, sadly. I think I was actually doing the dress rehearsal of the show, and I got a call at the stage. I was staying in another conductor's house at that stage. I got a call at the stage. The stage door said, there's somebody called for you, and they'd rung the theatre to tell me that John had just he was digging the garden at the bottom of the garden and collapsed with a heart attack, and that was it. And they were due to come to see the show, within the next few days. I got tickets for them and the opening, so it was devastating. But as it happened, and he was wonderful, taught me so much. But I ended up going to live for the rest of the contract with them in Bromley. So I sort of adopted the rest of the family, and John's daughter Jane, who was still at school at that stage, who's like my surrogate little sister now. I could be there with them, and we did have a lot of fun together and all that sort of thing.
But tell us about the impact of that. So you're backstage, you've just discovered that somebody that you care about very deeply has just died, but the show must go on. Do you agree?
No, absolutely.
How do you deal with
absolutely. That? And that's happened to me several times, actually. Happened to me with an aunt last year when I was doing Mother Superior in Frankfurt, Sister Act. I just, I got a call just before I was about to do a show that my aunt was basically in a coma and wasn't expected to come through. And you think, Oh my goodness. And my fellow actors, singers, they were just so sweet, so kind, and I couldn't go back to the funeral either because of the show, which is awful.
Yeah.
I had to
Yeah.
perform on the day of her funeral. I basically wasn't. The show would have had to have been cancelled for several shows, and they couldn't have stopped me doing it, but I couldn't do it.
Oh.
And my cousin said, he said, Mum would not be happy about you missing the show, so don't come to the funeral. And you do it for them, don't you?
Yes.
I've had to do it. I had to do it for my dad as well, and my mum. The same thing happened. When my mum was dying. When I was, she actually managed to pull through for a short while then, but she was on an operating table with a serious cancer when I was singing a very frivolous role, I call it, in a wonderful role, a Donizetti opera, L'Elisir d'Amore, the Elixir of Love. And I'm playing the lead with all these fancy things. And she'd only just seen me do it a few weeks before. And said, and they'd told me in the car on the way back that she got this serious cancer and she was going to be operated on straight away, and I had to continue to do these shows, and I was doing the show while she was on the operating table. And I remember the conductor, lovely chap called Wyn Davis, wonderful conductor, and he took me for a walk before the show. And there was a park. I can't remember. We were on tour, so I can't remember where we were. And we walked into this park, and I said, "I just feel terrible, doing this when my mother's doing that." And he said he knew my parents, and he said, "This is what you've got to do. She would not be pleased if you don't do it. We'll do it together." And he was so lovely. And I'm doing this fantastic fireworky aria at the end when the two lovers are reconciled and it's all fabulous, all this. And watching him, it was like, he was such a sensitive chap. It was like every bar he was encouraging me to, to go on and put all those fireworks and enjoy it. And he just sort of said, "Well done, Mags," at the end, and like this. And that's what people do, don't they? When that happens. And that's sadly, it's happened to all of us at some stage, probably. That you lose somebody very, very, very close to you. And the same was with the Phantom thing, that obviously I'd got to do it. John had been through all of it with me. He had only just a short time before that, funnily enough, written me a handwritten letter, the most lovely letter. He'd done a couple of letters to me in the previous few months, which I only found again fairly recently, which still bring me to tears, where he was able to write. This goes back to how expressing things on paper and your emotions is
it's more liberating.
It is more liberating, and also even seeing somebody's handwriting, it's more personal than anything typed down. And he had basically written to me how proud he was of me and everything I'd done, and that I should always believe in myself. And I could feel quite emotional even doing it. He wasn't a man that found it easy to express emotional things. A very emotional man, but didn't find it easy. And they were like bits of poetry, just saying, "I'm behind you, I'll always be behind you," as it were. And so I suppose I thought of that after hearing this terrible shot that he literally died whilst digging the garden. That I thought he will be there. He will be there. Cheering me on.
Maggie, what would you say to anybody who's going through something emotional at the moment, whether they're going on stage or whether they're going through it in personal circumstances? How does the show go on in such an extreme situation? What challenges did you find ways to overcome things? What did you do?
I think you have to, as best you can, almost put yourself, if you like, in a box. You have to this is where your inner strength comes in, I suppose. And say look, I've it's my duty to do this, it's my job to do this. This is Yeah, it is what I'm being paid to do, but I want to, you know, if it is something like you are performing and it's somebody that's, if it's somebody that's hurt you and behaved very, very badly, which has happened to me one occasion, I thought, blow this. I am not going to let I'm not going to let your unkindness or your negativity stop me from doing what I love.
Yes.
I'm going to defy this. It's
Yeah.
not always easy, and I have certainly had quite a long-standing battle on one particular set of circumstances on that which has potentially affected me as a performer. But you have to be strong and say, if it's somebody that's done something to hurt you, then you have to say, I'm not going to let that hurt me, at least for the time that I've got to do this.
Yes.
And you know, this is what I've got to do. And I think in terms of singing, and I remember when my auntie Wendy died, doing that, I thought I will the Mother Superior has a fantastic number, I Haven't Got a Prayer. Do you know, the weird thing is, just digressing, the words in that are so relevant. I didn't know what to say. I thought I must say a prayer for her. I went into the incredible church in Frankfurt. It's enormous, and I lit a candle, and I thought, what do I say? I don't really know. And I found myself quoting the Mother Superior, because it worked. It fitted. It worked. I said the lines.
Yes.
I virtually sang the song to
Oh
her.
my
And
goodness.
it because it was so relevant, you know, I couldn't have put it better myself, really. And so I sang it for her. So if it was
Yes.
somebody like when my mum was on the operating table, I thought, because she would have been so cross if I hadn't done it, because you know, she's I haven't been chivvying you on all these years for you to not do it, sort of thing. So I think. I remember my father's funeral, and I absolutely worshipped my dad. He was wonderful and supported me enormously. He lived 10 years longer than my mum, and he came to see everything. My friends in the business knew and loved him, and sometimes he put them up in his house and things like that, and things like that. He was just lovely, and I thought, I don't know if I can sing at his funeral. I did sing at his best friend's funeral, which was really hard, but I made that funny. If we get a chance to, I'll tell you that story. But I thought, I don't know if I can sing. We can get through it, but maybe I can speak. And I'd said, I do want to do something in honor of him, because he was so supportive. So I remember I was at his house just a few days after he died, and this is going back to the Gilbert and Sullivan business, and he had given me a book which is probably, I don't know if it might be quite valuable actually, an old book which I think had been produced in America actually, with the most beautiful cartoons of all the characters in all the GNS operas. And all the script, no music, but the whole play. So it's a really thick leather-bound book, you know. And he'd given this to me, and I think he had bought it in America actually. Anyway, I was with a very, very good friend of mine, Liz, who I've known most of my life, and we were sitting on the settee in my father's house, and she said, and I said, I don't, you know, I know he loved GNS and he could quote from all the operas. I said, I don't know what to say. And she said, why don't you just let the book open where it will?
Yeah.
So I did. And whether this is coincidence, I like to think it's not. But the book opened right in the middle of. Do you know any of the GNS operettas?
You explain to the
Well, let's
audience a little bit more.
Well, one of the shows he wrote is one called The Gondoliers.
Yes.
And you know, I'd sung a lot from it in the past. And there's a lovely quartet in it, which the four main characters sing, which is basically saying, I was paraphrasing it, life's a pudding full of plums.
Yes.
And
yes.
the one thing you can't, life is what it is, but actually there is an inevitability. It's basically what it's saying, that the end we all go, we'll die, and we can try all our lives to doing things, we can try and change
Yes.
things, but there is an inevitability
Yes.
to something. And it's a wonderful, it's a wonderful quartet. And it opened on this, and we looked at each other, and she said, "That's it." It was like he'd said it. How could you?
I believe that did happen for a reason. I have a very big, strong belief that everything in life, good and bad, does happen for a reason, but it's not the cards we're given. I've said this before, it's how we choose to play them. So everything that happens, I believe, is with purpose, and I think that absolutely fell open for a reason.
It was extraordinary.
Yeah.
And so I regaled this story at his funeral, and just read the words of "Try we lifelong," and it just was, so right.
And did it feel, instead of feeling that sort of grief and showmanship, this sort of where you can't be yourself because you're putting a show on, it sounds like because of the experience you've had, you could actually be what's called your authentic self.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, how
Absolutely.
beautiful.
And
your father sounds like an inspirational gentleman. We said earlier, Dick Van Dyke in Chitty Bang Bang, the engineer who was engineering your career as well, and driving you forwards with his stories, with his modalities, and his encouragement and enthusiasm in the West End. Now, on the West End subject, so how beautiful that you've shared with us today two beautiful parents that you've obviously been blessed with there, so behind you as well, which is just gorgeous to hear. And so you, after Phantom, am I right? It was because you've mentioned The Sound of Music. Tell us a little bit about that, Maggie.
Well, it's sort of in between whiles, sandwiched between whiles. This was the film, because having done the stage production, the film was being discussed as to that there was going to be a making of the Phantom of the Opera film, and I was doing Carlotta at the time. And I remember saying to everybody, "Oh my gosh, I would just die to play Carlotta in the film. I would do anything. I would sell my soul to the devil to play that part in the film." And it came on fairly close. The talks about it and everything came on very close after I'd come out of Phantom. And then I got a call from one of the main producer, David Grindrod, saying, through my agent, saying, would I come along and come and sing for Carlotta? And I think we knew fairly early on that obviously they were going to use big stars, for it was a big film being directed by the wonderful, inimitable Joel Schumacher. So there would be a name for Carlotta, but that she wouldn't be able to be in a position to sing it. So they were looking for the voice of Carlotta. So I ummed and ahed, and I thought, well, it better to be something in it. So I went along and sang for them, sang Carlotta, and I'd only left it, I think, about an hour, and I was shopping. I think I've got a feeling I was shopping with my sister actually, and I got a call saying, "You've been offered." My agent rang me and said, "You've been offered it. The deal is that you will sing everything for Minnie Driver was going to be doing it." And although she was a folk singer, she wasn't an opera singer. So they said every note will be sung by you, and you will be, and obviously you'll have to coach her how to sound like she looks like she's singing like you, and you will also be in it, because they want you they want you to play the small part of the confidant in the film, which is ironically when you're on the stage at the same time as Carlotta. So that was interesting in itself. And you'll be in the featured ensemble, because we want you not only in the singing on the voice of Carlotta, we want your voice in the ensemble. And as it happened, they decided they wanted my voice on both the soprano roles. So there's a very funny, I can't remember, there was 2 or even maybe 3 parts, I can't remember. But in the ensemble numbers, where Carlotta is in it, there are at least 3 different versions of me in those numbers. It's just hilarious. So I had to record
Wow.
all the tracks. I did. So they said, "No, let's have you on that line as well." So I just duplicated all of them. So that was, I have to say, that was, it was the next best thing, if you like. So that was recorded not far from here, of course, long before I moved down here at Pinewood. And the first of all, I had to go to Andrew's recording studio place and night with the guy that used to, a lovely guy called Nigel Wright. And I had to record the whole thing for Minnie to learn to sing along with, if you like, because obviously she got to mouth the words. And so I'd done that first, and then we all arrived, all of us together, with all the big names and everything, Emmy Rosamond, and it was, with fantastic cast. And I walked into, I think it was the James Bond set, and had been used the James Bond set, so it's vast. And the first thing as I walked through the doors, the first thing I heard was me singing the cadenza at the beginning. Walked into it, and people were saying, "Who's that? Whose voice is that?" And I said, "It's me."
Wow. Wow.
And
on
so,
the James Bond set.
I know. It was so funny. And of course, we got the internet and everything by that time. So that night, there wasn't going to be any way that it could be hidden who I was, because it went out, various people on the crew and everything, and they put it out on the internet. We've heard we know who's singing Carlotta. My name was up there and all that kind of thing, and it was a blast. And we did it over a number of months. To over almost 6 months, I suppose, bits and pieces, pricing, and I just had a ball, really. I had an amazing time doing it,
Fantastic.
And
And I want to just say, when for anybody that's watching, I just want to add, which particular Phantom film was it, just so that people can go straight to watch?
There is only one Phantom film.
Oh, there's only one. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when did it come out? When did the Phantom of the Opera come out?
I think I've sent you a clip of that. 2000 and now I'm trying to remember now. Is it 2004? I think it came out 2004.
Okay.
Something like that. It must be it's nearly 20 years ago. Yeah, but you can hear me singing it. Yes, lots of clips of me singing all it. Yeah.
Fantastic.
There's things like there's obviously the whole prima donna number and Il Muto, and so obviously I'm on the soundtrack and my name is credited with it. So I even did the croaking of the frog as well.
Did you? Did you?
Yeah. And all that.
My goodness. No, and so because we are sadly running out of time, and I wish
and
that
Sound
we weren't.
Of Music. Yes,
I want to talk about the Sound of Music.
Yeah. So very shortly after that, after the film came out, I got an invitation to come and an audition for the Sound of Music, and they had got Leslie Garrett to do it. She wasn't going to do all the shows, and they said she's only going to do a limited tour of it, whatever it was, I think 6 months or something like that. And they said, we want somebody that will do the alternate shows and take it over. So again, I think I was offered it there and then. So that's exactly what happened. I did all rehearsals and everything, and Leslie, who I've known for many years, did the show, and I did the alternative shows, and then 6 months later took it over. This is Mother Superior.
Mother Superior.
Mother Abbess, I should say. Mother Abbess. It is.
Mother Abbess.
And so it was a wonderful production directed by Jeremy Sams. We had an absolute blast from beginning to end. The nicest group of people you could imagine.
Connie Fisher, is this right?
This is with Connie Fisher, who was chosen with How Do You Solve a Problem Like Maria? Yes. And in fact, I'm seeing her very shortly. We've remained very good friends because we did so many
Lovely.
shows together in town and on because I did the national tour as well. So I sort of played her basically for 2.5 years at Palladium and on tour. But what I was going to say, thinking about inspirational things, it was a role that I was quite surprised when they asked me to audition for it, in a sense, because I didn't know that it would. I'd never seen myself as a Mother Abbess type, really, I suppose. I mean, I was always a Maria, really. I was too old to play Maria by that stage, but I'd sung Maria all over the place. But that song, thinking about songs being very emotive, that Climb Every Mountain, which the Mother Abbess has the privilege of not only closing the end of the first act with, but the end of the second act with. And you're in the London Palladium, which will still be one of the highlights of my life.
And I saw that show with Connie, which again was obviously with yourself, and it was phenomenal.
It's amazing. It was phenomenal. And you know, to say, and you used to come out, we all remember the production. You came out at this sort of passerelle, as they called. So you come on this little platform with this Dixit Dominus Domino meo. You're leading all the nuns around there. So you're standing in front of this vast orchestra pit, and you all you hear is a dong dong, and you look out. You've got this huge orchestra behind you, and in front of you, and absolutely, because it was packed every single show. Again, it's something like over 2,500 seats, isn't it?
Yes.
And you think, oh my gosh, how lucky am I? You know, you break the silence with this Dixit Dominus Domino meo. It was a fabulous production, actually, and it was very, very well conceived. And this coming out on the passerelle, and of course, then we used to process all the way after doing the opening prayer right down the auditorium, come out, and our dear friend Anthony, you see, when he was working in the theatre, yes, he, bless him, I'd have a little flirt with him, you know, and he'd insist on taking, oh no, I have to escort you back. You do. So we'd have this conversation every show he was there, and he, looking all gorgeous. Oh, I was a little bit in love with him, I think. And he'd take me around every show back to my dressing room. Oh no. I'm doing this. Didn't have to do it.
Such a gentleman.
He's just so adorable. So adorable.
We actually worked together, Maggie, on the cruise ship. He was one of the people that I met in the seas. Yes. And he can sing and dance and act. He's got all of those talents. But he's also a wonderful support and a butler, looking after people backstage.
He's lovely. He's got
a gentleman.
But that song, you sing Climb Every Mountain, that song has had apart from the fact that I've been lucky enough to play that part in so many in different productions, in so many interesting, wonderful places in the world anyway, and met incredible people, got to know as a friend Mary Rogers, for heaven's sake, and all the Rogers and Hammerstein people, I've just knew them all, and Marnie Nixon, who was in the film, of course, and was the famous dubber, in King and I and My Fair Lady and things like that. We became friends and met in New York and over here and so forth. But the Climb Every Mountain is still a song which, in times of when I need strength for myself, or to pass on to, I feel it's one of those things you should sing in a war zone.
Your final words, Maggie, before we say goodbye, your final words to anybody wanting to follow in your wonderful footsteps, what would they be? And I love how you said about Climb Every Mountain. What would be your final words to leave with the audience today?
My final words would be to follow the words of that song. Climb every mountain, ford every stream, follow every rainbow until you find your particular dream.
Well, Maggie, Preece, what an honour to speak to you today and a privilege. And thank you so, so much for sharing your story with us here on this channel. And I wish you every continued success ahead. And thank you for
been a
being such
pleasure.
an inspiration. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you for having me. It's been a great joy. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much. God bless. And I wish you all the very best ahead. Thank you,
And
Maggie.
to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, love.
Bye-bye.
Caroline, you had the two passes. In the 2004 film adaptation, Carlotta is played by Minnie Driver. The musical numbers are actually sung by Margaret Preece.